Good morning. Good day. Hayom Yom 23. 23. Menachem. Excellent. In the winter of 5652, which corresponds to 1891, 1892, when my father, Rabbi Rashav, taught me, the Frierdiker Rebbe, in the book of Tanya, it says, this is chapter 2 in Tanya. After in chapter 1 describing the nefesh abahamis, the animal soul, in chapter 2, the Alter Rebbe starts to describe the godly soul. The second soul in Israel is literally a part of God, a chelek eleka memam, a part of God above. So, Rabbi Rashab explained to his son, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the connotations of the word above, chelek eleka memal, and it goes on, chelek eleka memal mamish. So above and mamish. Mamish refers to substance, mamoshes. So there's a contradiction. Above indicates the most spiritual, the most refined, the most amorphous, not opposite of mamoshes levels. Well, actually, mamish describes the most material of material things. So we have here a davar v'hefuche, a thing and its opposite. That's the nefesh elokis. The godly soul is a union of opposites. He explained, how does this work? That this is the unique quality of the second soul, that though it is the epitome of the spirit, in other words, chelek eleka memal, at the same time, it has an effect on the most material of materiality. So this is one of the many embodiments of something that, if you've been with us for a while, you've heard me quote many times from Sefer Yetzirah, the Kabbalah work attributed to Avram Avinu, that noitz techilosan b'soifon dafka, the beginning, which is lamaila, chelek eleka memal, the beginning is wedged in the end specifically, which is really a mouthful. In other words, where will you find the, if you could say such a thing, the most of godliness? It's down here below. That's where he has embedded his very self. And that's why this place is the place where the work is to reveal that very self, to make an open home for him, a dwelling place for him, specifically in the lower worlds, not in the higher worlds. And that's what we're dealing with basically almost all the time, paradox. The paradox is where you find God, the union of opposites. And this is what we've been dealing with in our lessons in Tanya. Lessons in Tanya today continues our parak on page 130. And in the Likutei Amorim, it continues on page, near the bottom of page 222, 4 lines up, right? We've been talking about, constantly about Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. Ani Hashem lo shenisi, I am God, I haven't changed. And yet, all the changes and all the multiplicity come from him. And the most change, the most multiplicity, which is a function of the most simsum, the most contraction, is down here below. So, we will continue our story based on a pasuk that we quoted near the beginning. It wasn't the beginning of this letter Zion, it was a little later. It says, Yaakov Avinu, it says, V'yikra Kael, he called him God. After the Masa with the wrestling the angel, he called him Kael Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel. Now, Israel is another name for Jacob, right? His name was changed. In fact, as a result of that, from wrestling with the angel, his name was changed to Yisrael. And if you look on the page or in your mind, the name Yisrael is two forms, Yosha, upright, and Kale. Kale is the name of God itself. Kale is the name of God that refers to God's might and God's power. And from then on, Yaakov Avinu is called the upright, the Yasher, or the embodiment of the uprightness of Kale, of that aspect of God, which is contraction, emanation, diffusion down below. And that's hinted in his name also, and also written in many memoirs, his old name, Yud Akev. Yud is the first letter of the name Havaya, which is the highest, and Akev is the heel. Oh, so here we have, happens to be a day when our Yom Yom and our Tanya are kind of openly on the same page. They all are, but they're not so open all the time. Okay, so let's start. Vehine, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up from the bottom on page 222. Vehine, behold. It says, Shufreha de Yaakov, me'en Shufreha de Adam Harishon. This is a Zohar. This is from a Gemara Baba Metzia. Zohar is quoted right after this. And it's from a Gemara, so it's Shofreha de Yaakov. Shofreha is a word that means beauty, like the two maidens who made the embryos beautiful in Egypt rather than killing them according to Pharaoh's order. One of them was named Shifra. And this is the word Shifra. She beautified. So Shufreha, the beauty, the grace and beauty of Yaakov is Ma'en Shufreha de Adam HaRishon, is like the beauty of Adam HaRishon, the first man. So Adam HaRishon, the very first instantiation of humanity and the first embodiment of the Nefesh Elokis in a human being, is reflected in the face, the beauty of Yaakov Avinu. And that's why he's called Yisrael, because he is the father, the progenitor of all of us who are the Jewish people. And so again, this infinite soul becomes embodied in a finite body and is transmitted from father to children. Yaakov is the third father, the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The father and the mother pairs, we're offspring of that. So we're offspring of this direct father who is Yisrael, called Yisrael, who himself is an offspring of Adam HaRishon. And that genealogy is kind of obvious, but what's not so obvious is that what's happening here is that divinity becomes enclosed in a soul, and that divinity is being transmitted through Yaakov Avinu, who's now Yisrael, who becomes a major father, progenitor of all of us. So the divine soul becomes transmitted from Adam HaRishon all the way to each of every one of us, because he's Elokei Yisrael. He's the God of Israel, which is Yaakov. He's the God of Israel, which is us. Now, how did this happen? Because in his avoda, his service of Hashem, Shetiken Chet Adam HaRishon, he rectified the sin of Adam HaRishon. And so his neshama, hayason nishmasa, his soul was gamkin kaludim ekol haneshama sheb'Yisrael. So he now becomes the inheritor of the general rectified nefesh elokis in its rectified state, and with its power to rectify. And he becomes, that soul now becomes included, and he becomes the all-inclusive container and transmitter of neshamas of the Jewish people, sheb'Yisrael. Ma'olam bi'ad olam, from world to world, or you could translate it from forever and ever. And he, Yisrael, Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov is Israel, he is what they call, it's actually from Yechezkel, he's a chariot. He becomes a chariot for Torah. Just like a chariot has no will of its own, but it's driven by the driver. So the Nefesh Elokis that we've inherited, its will is not to do anything other than what the driver, which is Hashem himself, is implanting in it continuously. So Yisrael, the Jewish people, Yisrael Yaakov Avinu, Torah is a chariot to the Torah as the Torah derives from up above. Shenikra b'shem Adam, which the Torah itself is called Adam. It's a pasuk. It says, Zois Titus Adam. This is the law of a person. Sheyamas be'oihel, when a person dies in a tent. This refers to the impurity that befalls a person a space when a person dies there. But we were just using the beginning words, Zois Titus Adam. This is the Torah, Adam. Adam, Aleph Dam, that Aleph, the beginning, which is invested in the blood, Aleph Dam, is that soul is equated with the Torah itself, which is like the Torah embodies godliness from the deepest level. So the Nefesh Elokis embodies godliness from the deepest level. And so Adam, now this harks back, reflects also to Adam Arishon. We understand Adam, anything that's called an Adam, is a container for the infinite light of God. And this is a quote from Yecheskel, Ve'al demus hakisi demus kamara Adam. Yecheskel had a vision of a chariot, again, something that's totally given over, has no will of its own, which was being directed by an Adam. On the face of on the image of the chariot, he saw demus kamara Adam. He saw the appearance of an Adam. So Adam is the Torah, which guides all of creation, and Adam is the Nefesh Elokis, which guides all the rectification and the infusion and the revelation of godliness in this world. But Kamasha Kasav, have another pasuk here. V'zeis lefanim b'Yisrael. It says, this is in front of you, in front of them, amongst the children of Israel. And Chazal say, Ein zois el Torah. What it is that we're going to darshan these words. It's a pasuk. Zois lefanim b'Yisrael. This is in front of amongst the Jewish people. Zois is the Torah. Lefanim means panemius. Right? All the time, we've talked about this many times, the word in front of, lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem. Chassidus, of course, that's a simple meaning, but the drush on it, lifnei means panemius, the innermost dimensions. So the Torah is the innermost dimension and in the Jewish people, and it's implanted in Yisrael, Yaakov Avinu, and then he, as progenitor for all of us, the Jewish people, transmits it to all of us. And this Zois is called Torah. The Torah, all of the Torah, all of God's infinite energetic that's contained in Torah is included and enclosed in the Nishmas Yisrael Saba, in the soul of Yisrael Saba. Saba means grandfather, right? Saba and Savta. So he's the great grandfather of it all, the granddaddy of the Jewish soul, and transmits that spiritual energy through us, his offspring. And that Yisrael Saba, that granddaddy, Hakalula Makol HaNeshamas, he includes all the Neshamas. So the Neshamas of all the Jewish people, and again, that he's called Yisrael, are all of us. And that harks back, because he's a direct line to Adam Harishon, who is the soul of all of man. And Adam Harishon harks back to and is the physical instantiation of divinity enclosed in an entity which we call a neshama, a soul. So Yisrael, who is Yisrael Saba, which is Yaakov, includes all the neshamas. And that now harks back to our pasuk that we quoted before. He called it God, the God of Yisrael. He is now in this angel battle that goes on is a little consolidation of the rectification of everything. He's victorious over the angel of Esav. Esav is the paradigm of negativity in the world, and Yaakov Avinu wins the battle. So all the negativity in the world become rectified through the soul of Yaakov Avinu. And that power of rectification is transmitted to us to rectify any negativity in ourselves and in the world throughout the entirety of history until and inclusive of the Yesod Mashiach. So it says that he called it Kael Elokei Yisrael, God, the God of Israel. Kael is Lashon Hamshacha. As I said earlier, there are various names of God, and like Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Hava, God as he is responsible for the continual bringing into being of everything. Elokim is a language of Gevurah, which goes on usually on God's ability to metzamtzem himself. And Kael is a lashon of drawing down, Hamshacha Ha'ora, drawing down the ray and radiation, Ma'or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the infinite one, blessed be he, or the light which is infinite, Me'ahelam El Agila, from concealment to revelation. So it takes the condensation and distillation, and Kael reveals the might and power that's within it. The Ho'er B'Bichin is Gilu, that it should shine, that godly light should shine in a manner of in a revealed state, B'Nishmasoi, in each and every one of our souls. Mishakosov has written, Kael Havaya V'Lonu V'Hoya Lonu. We use the word Kael. God, Havaya manifests itself as Kael, and that shines to us. So Kael is the drawing down of godliness and the revelation of that drawing down. The Acharav called Yisrael, and it goes on and it says, and after that is every upright heart, Ha'oiskim b'Torah u'mitzvahs, who occupies itself, every upright heart who occupies itself, oneself, in Torah and mitzvahs. So in that, every soul that does that, that's us, and everybody else around who is invested with this godly soul. And because of that investment of that godly soul in us, which is an inheritance from Yaakov Avinu, which is an inheritance from Adam Arishon all the way back, Me'er Or Hashem Ein Sof Baruch Hu, there shines the light of Hashem, the infinite one, blessed be he, the Bechinas Gili B'Nishmasam, in a revealed state in our souls. So connecting with the inyan of Yaakov Avinu is connecting with the strength of revelation that exists in our godly souls. Bisman Gilizah, and the time of this revelation, where we can access it, where it's most available to be accessed and realized and experienced, V'yosis ha'ois, in its strongest power, V'yosis ha'ois in its strength, and in its V'yosis ha'ois and in its strongest power, ha'ora, this radiation, b'moichem v'libon, is most available to be illuminating and shining and realized and become aware in our brains and our hearts. That time is b'shas tefillah, in the time of davening, as is written in another place. And that's today's Tanya, with a little bit of editorializing. All right. How's that settle? Or not? Anybody? All good? All there? Okay, how about a bechein then? How do we use it? What do we do with it?
There's a lot of concepts here.
Yeah.
They just seem like unconnected a little bit.
Well, let's see why not. I mean, I wouldn't want to extend that because we have a beautiful connection from Adam Harishon to Yaakov Avinu to all of us. The infusion of godliness and encapsulation of it in the godly soul, which is invested in the first Adam and then transmitted generation after generation to another kind of nexus, which is Yaakov Avinu, who becomes named Yisrael, and we, the Jewish people, inherit that. That's point number one. Point number two of this is, okay, we got it. Number one, well, point number two is an A and a B in my mind. One, what's the purpose of it? Which is just as Yaakov Avinu rectified the embodiment of evil in his time, which was the angel of Esau. So that's the purpose of its being there. And B, where can we most get in touch with it in a way that it becomes radiating to us in davening, and then we can use it.
That's helpful.
Okay.
He brought a lot of examples of light.
Yeah. Light. That's the metaphor.
And how does that connect?
Well, light's the major metaphor for the infusion and the radiation and the appearance of godliness. Elikus is always mainly metaphorized. The metaphor for godliness is mainly light, or Ein Sof. The light of the Infinite One is the godly energetic that's infused in and realizable in all of reality.
So when can we tap into that light? When we daven, the light of Yaakov.
That, he tells us, is the time to cultivate the awareness of it. And then, of course, what do we do after davening? With that, he's not talking about that now, but we know that what do we do after davening? We go into the world and we take that light and shine it everywhere and give it as a gift to all of the encounters that we have with everything in the world. Okay, there's a bechen. You made me do it. Right? Thanks. Drew me right into that.
Good. That's a good bechen. Thank you.
Okay. Somebody has a hand up. iPhone has a hand up. Who's that? Dianka? I'm not sure. Okay. All right. I mean, if that's what you want to leave it with, fine. I like it better when other people make their own bechens. But if you want to take that one and run with it, okay.
I guess another bechen from what you said just now is that we have to focus on that davening is not the end goal, but that we take davening into the day with us. Kind of to see davening like that.
Right. Right. Good. All right, then.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow in Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow Erev Shabbos. Everyone have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.